Hey everybody, it's Kal Zerdi, founder of Fearless Transformation, where we help organizations learn the tools and the skills so that they can reach out to more of their clients, serve their mission, and grow in the process. Today, we're going to be talking about a tool that is called communication. That's right. Communication, yes. And one of the biggest things about communication is active listening. So one of the core values of communication is to actively listen and respond with empathy and compassion. Most of the conflicts, most of the turmoils that happen at the workplace or even in relationships, it happened because from my experience, from what I've heard, is that people do not listen. You're not listening. So we find that people either listen to find a solution, meaning to fix it, or they listen to respond, okay? Or they listen because to want to confirm that something they already know, okay? They're rarely ever actively listening and being present. And those people who we found that are actively listen, they usually their life is better, they have less conflicts, they're usually present, they excel at their workplace, and they make great leaders. Because one of the biggest qualities of leaders is being able to listen and being able to respond with empathy and compassion. On the other hand, leaders who do not listen, people who are, in their head, they're listening to respond, or they're listening to justify something already in their head, or they're assessing and judging in their head, not being present. They find themselves they are falling into more of a unnecessary conflicts. They find themselves being in situations where it creates turmoil for themselves and the people around them. And people around them do not feel good about themselves because they feel they're not being present. So one of the biggest things we'll talk about, in order for you to become an active listener, an awesome leader, is being able to be present. So at the end of the video, after we go through this video, you're going to learn about a tool, how to become a better listener so that you become a better leader, an influencer, a parent, a spouse, or a friend. Okay? One of the best tools, one of the best gifts we can give to others is the gift of listening and being completely there in that person's shoes, seeing the world from their own eyes. So, what is the tool for active listening? Well, the tool that I'm talking about here today is step number one is being able to acknowledge. Okay, acknowledge the communication that's just received. And when I say acknowledge, it doesn't mean that you're agreeing with what the person had to say. Acknowledge meaning that you understand where that person is coming from. You're able to put yourself in their shoes, looking at the world from their own eyes, and being able to see it from their perspective. That's it. That's what's about listening, what's acknowledging is. It doesn't mean that you are encouraging that behavior, whether it's, if that person was blaming or was coming from a place of being a victim. When you acknowledge, doesn't mean that you are supporting that behavior. You're just understanding where they're coming from. Okay? That's step number one. And when you do that, you find the other person, if they're coming with tension and emotions are high, you will find that it just starts to take a step down, a notch down, by using words such as, I understand where you're coming from. I can see how could that, happen that way. Or, I appreciate that you sharing that with me. All right? Anything around from this coming from that place, you are acknowledging what the person has shared with you. And that's the first thing. Then you want to be able to repeat back what the other person has said. Okay? Repeat back. When I say repeat back, you don't repeat that, verbatim. What I'm saying is, when you repeat back, you repeat back certain words or certain events that happened in the sequence that it happened in. And why that's important? Because when we're communicating, when people are communicating to us, when communicating to others, we usually we have an image or a more like a movie in our mind that we are, sharing with that person. And it usually happens beginning to an end. And with the importance that it happened, for example, someone is sharing with you that, I woke up this morning, I was rushing and, feeding the kids, and running out of the house, and I forgot my coffee, and then I go back, get my coffee, and I'm in the car driving, and this guy comes over and, cut me off, and here I am right now, I'm a little bit on the edge. Wow. Wow, so you woke up this morning, and after, going through getting your kids what they need, and then you forgot your coffee, and even after that you got someone to cut you off. That can be very frustrating, especially starting the morning that way. Could sound something as simple as that. Okay, so notice that I repeat the events in the sequence that happened, from taking care of the kids in the morning, forgetting the coffee, and having someone to cut that person off. The message is to be able to repeat back the sequence of events the way it happened, in the order that it happened. Why? Because that's what's important to them. Otherwise, they would have not shared it in that sequence. You are replaying the movie in their head in the order that they shared that movie with you. So you're replaying it for them in their own eyes. As a result, now you are building rapport, you're building trust, you're matching and mirroring that person's point of view. Now, did we agree, or did we justify, or did we encourage any of the behavior that that person is coming from? Maybe they're coming from a place of blame, or they're coming from a place of they don't want to work, or they don't want to be at work. We don't know. We don't need to judge that. All what we're doing is just we're repeating back what that person said in the same sequence that they shared with us. So that's step number one, is being able to acknowledge. Okay. Step number two is using an emotional word that summarizes that experience for them. And what I shared is, that can be very frustrating starting your morning that way. Frustrating, okay? And many times when you say that, people will correct you. They'll say, it's just not frustrating. It's actually making me angry. Got it. We are seeing from their own eyes that can be frustrating. That could make you angry. I would have felt the same way too. Whatever that is, that in your own words, in your world, what would you say? That is up to you. But step number one is acknowledge. Step number two is empathizing, using an emotional word. And now you have the option to whether either you want to respond or you want to ask a question. Okay? A response would be like something like that. I understand at times when this happened, I usually make a phone call, I text message letting me know that, you're going to be late. And it happens. Okay? I request in the future, you send me a text message, or you let me know that you're having a rough morning, and we could, get someone else to fill your place, or we can I could have asked Cindy to send me the report, or we could have had Linda to prepare the room instead of you being here doing it, because you are going through a rough day, because we're a team. Okay? So now you responded. I'm just making an example up, right? Or you could ask a question. May I ask, what could you have done in the future if this happened to let us know ahead of time that this is happening in your world, so that we could have, taken the necessary measures to fill your task, or to have someone to fulfill on your task while you're not here. Right? Ask a question. So it's either you can respond now, or you can ask. That is up to you where you feel the conversation is going. But I promise you, you do step number one. You acknowledge what they said. You do step number two. You represent that experience in an emotional word, and you would see that big balloon full of emotions, intensity, and all that is just like, it just shrank down. Now you are allowing them to shift from their emotional brain, which is the right brain, into their left brain, and now there is a dialogue. Now you can have a dialogue with someone. You cannot have a dialogue with someone if they are emotional, if they're coming from the right brain. So those 2 steps are designed to help someone to get the emotions out so that you can have a logical, reasonable dialogue. I hope that makes sense. My assignment to you for the next 30 days is to empathize and respond with compassion. Okay? Actively listening using these steps by acknowledging what their message is. Summarize that message with an emotional word, okay? And then you can go into your response or asking a question. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not every message that you hear you're gonna have to go through these steps. If someone share with you, hey, I haven't sent a report yet. I'll send it to you tomorrow. And if you say something like, oh, I understand you haven't sent that report, that can be, tough for you, great, send it to me tomorrow. That sounds weird, right? So when I'm saying this, what makes most sense is when there are emotions are involved. When you can sense there are emotions involved in that person, that's when this works best. But if someone is just sending you a message, a logical message, there's no need to do that, okay? We are busy, we are go. You're serving a lot of your prospects, your clients, you're working with one another in your workplace. You don't have time to keep repeating back, and that sounds weird. It's like parroting. That would come across as superficial and inauthentic, okay? This you would use when there are emotions involved, and you're able to help that emotions to dissipate by using these 2 steps, and then you can be able to have this logical conversation. So empathize and acknowledge is designed to get the emotions out of the way. Now you can have a logical conversation with step number 3, which is responding or asking a question, okay? So again, your assignment for the next 30 days is to actively listen, and when there are emotions involved, you acknowledge that message, empathize using an emotional word, and then you go into your response or asking a question. All right? So, with that being said, go ahead and give it a shot. Knowledge is not power. It's implementation of the knowledge that is the power. I challenge you for that assignment. I look forward for your feedback, questions, share as you like. And any questions you ask, I'll personally respond to you. Comment on the video below. Whatever you need to do, go ahead, rock it, and empathize. Make people feel good around you. Build your influence, build your rapport, and be successful. Until then, be fearless. Cheers.